And so, when you have adversity, one of the things to do is to actually take the time to label your emotions, because we're not really very good at that. Like, we know we're experiencing something and we don't like it, but it's like a hodgepodge of all these emotions. And then when you start labeling it, you start unraveling.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even surprises you, because you're like, you know what? I'm actually not mad. I just don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And, or that's just an example.
I'm not mad, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm not mad, I'm tired.
Right.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Right. There's actually something else under there, but you first experience it as this other emotion, or that there might be multiple emotions back there. And so by labeling it, then it automatically seems to cool it down a bit. And so there's a story from my past where I used to be a major part of the third largest motorcycle rally in the nation. And
true story.
In doing that, I had to make sure that we were upholding all our obligations to the city, including making sure that there was clear access for the fire department to get where they needed to go in the event of an emergency. And these agencies would come around and make sure that we were in compliance. And if we weren't, there was the risk that the whole venue would be shut down. So I'm walking around the venue, and I come up to a sawhorse that is there so the emergency services can just quickly move it out of the way and get onto the midway where the people are coming from the parking lot. But it's blocked off for pedestrians and to walk through. So it's a pedestrian walk, but it has a sawhorse, so we're preventing cars from driving onto the midway, except in the case of an emergency service. And I'm walking and I see this spot, and there are two giant Harley Davidsons parked right in it. So there's no way that the fire department is getting through. And my immediate response is mad. And I go over and I'm going to move these things. And then I'm like, oh, they're labeled, and they're labeled as belonging to members of, let's just say, Sons of Anarchy. We dealt with a lot of motorcycle clubs who were similar to Sons of Anarchy. And so we're just going to say that these two bikes belong to a particular group, and they have like these plaques on them that say that they belong. You do not want to move a motorcycle that belongs to a member of the Sons of Anarchy or any of their ilk. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get these things moved. What am I going to do? And so I go over to one of the vendors attached to this particular group, and it's a guy who's a prospect, which is a guy who doesn't have full membership. And you can tell by the patchwork. He doesn't have full membership, so he's still like on a trial basis. And I'm like, look, I said, I explained the problem to him. Like, I just don't want all of us closed down because everybody wants to make some money this weekend. And yet, I need these things moved. Can you move them to someplace safe so nothing happens to them and they get out of the way? And so, he was so nice, and he did it. He moved them behind his tent so they were protected. And then I go about my way, and I'm basically doing a circuit. And by the time I come back to this particular location, I see the poor guy who went out of his way to help me, and he is getting reamed by a full member, and obviously one of the owners of one of the motorcycles. And so I'm standing there, and I'm like, I can't let this guy take the beating. And because he really went out of his way to help me, and it's kind of important to him because technically they can still cut bait with him. So the guy the full member, he's like yelling at him and pointing at him, and I walk up and I go, "Sir, I'm the one who asked him to move the motorcycle," and the guy is just like he's like midway, and right. He's like shocked because I'm 105 pounds and 5'6". This guy is huge. He's got this bullwhip around his head.
Of course he does.
And he's super angry, and I'm coming up and I'm like, "Sir, I'm the one who's responsible for your bikes getting moved." And he's like, he freezes for a second.
Yeah.
And in the freezing, he's able to, it's similar to like the labeling, he's able to lose momentum.
Yeah.
Right. And once he loses momentum, like the emotion cools.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, also, I mean, there's probably also a little bit of humor in it because like it's ludicrous that I'm coming up to this man and I'm like, sir, it's my fault.
Right.
And so he once he unfreezes, he's like, who are you? Like he goes from yelling to who are you? And I'm like, I'm Cindy in the office. I'm the person who's kind of managing the whole Midway. And, and this is why he did what he did. And so, it's just an example of how labeling and sort of taking a step back when you're experiencing the hot emotion can be ways that you then are able to handle the situation and like let go of the adversity.